Says off air. There we are. Good. Welcome to the second Fripp virtual training user group, and we can see that some of you are already coming into the room, so we want to welcome you. You, of course, are in for a treat. And the first polling question before you meet my celebrity guest is, can you see and hear? So Paul will be running the polls and doing the troubleshooting and posing your questions. So Paul, would you like to say hello to everyone and tell them where they find their polling questions?
Hello everyone. The polling and the chat window will be on the right-hand side of your screen. As polls come through, they will pop up in the foreground. You can answer them. You'll have 60 seconds, and then click back on the chat tab to go back to chat.
And the first polling question, Paul, is, can you see and hear? And while Paul is doing that, I will hold up the one of the books. This was the first book our guest wrote. It was the second one that I have read. However, it was his first book. Let's see the poll. Can you see and hear? You put your answer and then click enter or vote. Good. Yes, no, I can't hear. No, I can't see. Yes, I can. No, I can't see or hear. Good. I have to come closer to make sure I read them. However, I can see and hear perfectly well. Good. Now, just for our friends, let's see. 100% can see and hear. Wonderful. Perfect. Great. Well, as I said, you are in for a treat. The author of this book, and I will give you his last name once because this is a bit of a mouthful. Can you imagine trying to get an acting job when your name is Rob Biesenbach? Hello, Rob. Wave to our friends in Fripp VT land. Perfect. Oh. Now, why don't you show them your second book, which is the 11 Deadly Presentation Sins. And Rob promises me this has nothing to adding to the 10 Commandments. This is just about our world. Yes. Now, just reading his bio on the back, which is very extensive if you go to his website, but for 20 years, more than 20 years, a corporate communications expert and an independent consultant. He was a VP at Ogilvy PR Worldwide and the press secretary to the Ohio Attorney General. He's also a Chicago-trained actor and improviser who's appeared on more than or almost 200 theatrical and commercial productions. He's even played a doctor on TV. So what I find so interesting about you, Rob, is that I've met many actors that then went into the straight world, and some of my friends are communication consultants teaching corporate people what they learned as actors. However, you did it the other way around. You had a successful corporate career before you became an actor. In fact, how's this for an excuse? He has to leave at 20 minutes to the next hour because he has an audition. So, Rob, start with a snapshot of your life.
Well, for most of my career, I was spent it in conventional business positions, corporate communications, PR, but I always felt like there was something more creative calling to me. So about 10 years ago, I started a second career as an actor, and I loved it. And the more I performed and the more I learned, the more I realized that these two worlds that I was inhabiting, so I was doing both at the same time, acting and business, I realized that they were all very similar. They both require you to connect with an audience, to tell your story, to express yourself creatively. And the magic of it all is I found a way now to do the thing I love, which is performing on stage, sharing this knowledge I've accumulated, and helping people become more confident and skilled communicators. So it's really rewarding and really fun.
That must make you a real object of interest to your clients.
I think so. You know, at first I didn't tell my business clients about the acting stuff when the acting work that I did. I'm told I'm never.
I warned him. Chapter 7, specificity builds credibility. And any of our friends who have been in my events know if this were live, you would have, is in person, you'd have to hand over $1. So go back. You didn't tell them.
I didn't tell them about my evenings and weekends spent acting because I thought they might think that was weird and had nothing to do with business or a distraction. But what I found was I was becoming more creative. I was coming up with really interesting solutions to their problems. And so I guess at some point I decided to come out, if you will, and say, this is me. I'm an actor. I'm a business person. Each one makes me stronger. The business thing makes me a better actor because I go and I play a business person on TV and I actually know what they're talking about in the script, and it helps me in the other way as well.
Well, what did you know about the weed commercial?
The weed commercial. Oh, gosh, I played a farmer. It was 100 degrees in a cornfield in Illinois, and it was the middle of a drought. So almost every cornfield was dead, but this field was irrigated, and it was hot, and the largest bugs I've ever seen in my life, about 1 inch long, everywhere like gnats. It was not a fun day. But the commercial turned out great.
That's great, because I was surprised because I know you, having met you as what I consider a somewhat sophisticated looking person, very approachable and nice, but I would consider educated and sophisticated. You were so believable as a farmer with a problem, or who had obviously solved his problem with your client's solution.
Yes, I guess these days they call them growers, not farmers, and many of them are the people who market to them with these fertilizers or insecticides are trying to go for an audience of the modern farmer who may be a little more tech savvy. So there you go.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Well, if I were our VT user clients and watchers, I would probably bet, and though certainly they can write their own questions to you, I would want to know what is probably your most interesting and memorable role, and what did you learn from that would help us in the world of business communications?
I did a commercial. If people are an American college basketball fan, NCAA basketball, I did a commercial with University of Kentucky coach John Calipari, who is very successful, very intimidating, and I had to be one-on-one with him. I had to play a banker who was like really kind of annoying, and he had to play himself very annoyed at me. And I don't think he was acting. He was just being himself. And so I only had a couple of hours with him because he was on the way to the All-Star Draft, NBA All-Star Draft, to see some of his prospects make it in the NBA. But anyway, they had us, okay, we got the commercial, now let's do some fun stuff. And they had a whole box of junk and said, just start picking this stuff out of the box and just talking. It was a toaster, a piggy bank, an oar, a bagel slicer, I mean, just all this random stuff, and I had to make up words and ideas and jokes around these things. And you can see on my website the extended version of what I came up with. And so I guess what that taught me is you have to always be ready for anything. You have to be able to think on your feet, and that was my improv training. I believe every person in life and in business, if they take an improv class, you'll become a better listener, you'll learn to think on your feet, you'll contribute better, you'll be more open to new ideas. It's fantastic training.
Well, with improv, you really have to listen because you have to respond to what your partner said. Isn't that right?
Exactly. And in acting even, because an actor might say a line differently every time. I could kill you, or I could kill you. And if you were just going off your preconceived notion of what they're saying, your performance will be off. And it's the same thing in the business world or in the world in general. We're always hearing what we want to hear. We should listen to what people are really telling us.
Well, let's look at your book, The 11 Deadly Presentation Skills. And I know 11 are all equally important, however, you have an audition to go to. So what would you say are your 3, when I say favorite, they are the worst sins that you see in your own corporate communication consulting that your clients make?
I would say 1, in no particular order,
Yeah.
storytelling is essential. Stories stick, data, facts, and information don't. Doesn't mean that those things are not important. It means, though, you have to grab people's attention with a story that has emotional resonance. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would say understand your audience. Every audience is different. Really analyze them. What are their wants, needs, fears, objections, doubts, misperceptions? You have to key your presentation to those, or else you'll lose them. And finally, rehearsal. I see executives sabotage a perfectly good speech because they don't take the time to rehearse, and especially at the last minute, they squander their rehearsal time by rewriting their presentation or shifting their slides around when they should be focusing on the performance.
I have very similar experiences with my corporate clients. Would you give us a case history? Because what you do with many of your clients is you write their scripts for them. Isn't that right?
Right. I started at Ogilvy 20 years ago. The first thing I did was starting to write speeches. They came to me one day and said, I've just been there a week, and they said, can you write speeches? And I said, sure. And I hadn't technically, I've written talking points and press releases and, chairman's letters, but I did it. And I guess I did it well, because suddenly everybody was flooding my office saying, hey, I heard you're the speechwriter. So I just talked about, I don't know where I went with that, but I said, yes, speech writing was where I first started, and I still do it to this day, helping them prepare the words and framing their thoughts into something that's natural for them to deliver.
All right. If you have a client that you've helped to create the speech for, do you have any favorite questions or ways to convince them that they really do need to add personal stories?
Yes, I always ask for their stories. Whenever they're talking about a certain initiative, I say, I'll give you an example. A client of mine had to talk to his employees about a major restructuring. It's going to be a very tough announcement. And I said, have you ever gone through anything like this before? And he thought, and he said, yeah, actually, we went through this about 20 years ago. I was at a junior level. They cut the level above me. My boss was gone. I was upset. I was thinking of quitting. And he said, but you know what? It turned out once he left, I stood up on my own feet better. I rose to the challenge. I became more independent. And I said, we have to use that story. And I think we talked about this. He looked at me like, oh, really? Do you think people will be interested in that? And I and his communication staff were, yes, they're fascinated with that. They want to know that you've walked a mile in their shoes. Tell that story.
And for our VT users, I encourage, if you have not watched it yet, to, one, if you go in the file vault and download the Rockstar Communicator ebook, because it is the story just like this of working with a corporate executive and pulling his personal stories out. And the course, the VT course on leadership presentations, is based around that situation. Well, let's go to the chat box and see. We do have Jim Medlock. Do we see? So we don't have any questions here. Let's first put up the poll. We would be curious to know, have you ever taken an acting class? And although Paul will write acting, you could in fact say include an improv class. So while Paul's setting up the poll, let's look at, all right, why don't you now switch, Rob, and let's look at this book, Act Like You Mean Business. First of all, as you know, I am fascinated with showbiz and movies, and I love the way you just put the book together in Act 1 and Act 2. And do you have, well, I'm just going to pick one. So this is you being spontaneous, because now you mentioned here, and of course, action, which is Act 5, where the rehearsal, all the world's a stage, 6 ways to make the most of your time rehearsing. So why don't you give us, and it's on page 136. So I love this. This is almost improv.
So all what do you ask? You want me to go over some?
You're always rehearsing, and you quote Donald Pleasance. Tell them what Donald Pleasance said, because they know from me that I always quote Michael Caine, who says, rehearsal is the work, performance is the relaxation. And Donald Pleasance says?
He said, all the real work happens in rehearsal.
So as you can tell, all great speech coaches and all great actors agree. Once you've got your outline, your scripting, your story, your PowerPoint, it's all about rehearsing. Now, would you like to share some of your techniques on rehearsing? And if you have any showbiz stories to throw in, we'll take them.
Yeah. First of all, I would say the major objection I get from my corporate clients about rehearsal is they say, I don't want to sound over-rehearsed. And I think we both agree on this. There is no such thing as over-rehearsal. Actors will spend hundreds of hours leading up to the opening of a play. And when they come out on stage, they perform it as if it's fresh and brand new, and it's because the more you work the material, the more you become connected to it. The more connected you are to your material, the more connected your audience will be to you. So that's my number one thing. Just do it over and over as much as you can.
Good. I'd like to say in Fripp VT, know your content so well you can forget it. Now, in acting, of course, you have a director. So would you say in your role as a communications coach that you act as the director because you are there in many of your clients' rehearsals?
Yes, I am, and I'm also, when I do presentation training for people, I act in that role. I'm behind the camera. I tell them what I observe. I also try to get their peers. It's always nice to have somebody they respect and somebody they know well in the room who can also give them some feedback. And of course, video. In some ways the camera lies, but in other ways it does not. Everybody needs to watch themselves on video to see what they're doing when they don't realize it.
Perfect. All right, let's go back to our polls. So, all right, interesting. 22% of our attendees have taken an acting on improv class, so that's over 20%. That's good. I must admit, I took one improv class, and I didn't feel I did very well. I couldn't think fast enough. What I love doing is hearing a line and retweaking it, so I know there are times I can think fast. I couldn't respond fast enough. So perhaps you're going to encourage me to do it again. Now, and feel free, if you have any questions you would like Paul to pose to Rob, certainly go ahead and do it. So any other rehearsal techniques?
treat the dress rehearsal, usually the night before, the morning of a big speech when you're at a conference, treat that time with respect. Be on time, listen to what you're being told, make sure, of course, you treat everybody well, because a lot of the rehearsal there is to figure out the best lighting for you, the best sound for you. So there's all these people backstage who are working to make you look good. So help them help you. Be there on time, be open to suggestion, do what they say, and if you have a chance to rehearse it, do it. Full voice. Don't just phone it in. Do it as if you would do it on the day.
Good. And what I recommend in Fripp VT and all my classes is, one, certainly, just as you say, don't be an ass. Turn up for your rehearsal. And I know we have Jim Medlock in this call, who is one of my bosses at the American Payroll Association, one of my very best clients. And of course, they have big productions. They have over 2,000 people at their Congress. So you need everyone to know exactly where they have to be, when, how many paces it takes, and they rehearse their leaders walking on stage to sit at a head table. For example, in the wings, they have their dignitaries. I know they rehearse. Nobody carries handbags. You don't want to be cluttered. So it looks visually appealing. So this rehearsal is important. I would encourage speakers, whether it's the corporate world or when you get paid, even if it's a free presentation for a service club, it's nice to be in the room where you're going to be speaking, so you're comfortable. Isn't it true, Rob, that actors say make friends with the stage, be in the area where you're going to be performing?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to. I always want to see where I'm going to be giving a speech, and if I don't know the room, I will get there early. I might even visit it if I have a chance, if it's in town. It just helps me, and I think it might help a lot of people just sort of to understand where you're going to be, what's the feel, how close you're going to be to people, how high you're going to be, what the sound feels like. All of that is very important.
You know, let's see if there are any questions of you specifically. All right, good. All right, Paul, I know Jim Medlock sent a question. Would you like to engage the questions for us?
Absolutely. Jim Medlock asks, if you are presenting virtually, would you rehearse in a different way? Virtually, you may need to be at the keyboard.
I will let you answer it, and then I'll give my version.
That's a really good question. You know, your instinct is to stand up and walk around, but that can be very tricky on like a webinar, because your Wi-Fi or your sound might be all different, so you do have to sit. But webinars are extraordinarily tricky because you never quite. It's like sort of talking into the bottom of a well. You don't really know who's out there and what they're saying. That's why it's good to have polling and all that. So extra energy, you know, extra beautiful slides, extra bit of engagement. Everything you do in real life has to be more of it to grab people's attention. So I would say in the rehearsal, prepare more to keep people engaged and to keep your energy up.
And I would say, because this is obviously a new technology that I am working at to embrace, we do have a Fripp virtual training course on delivering webinars that even if you don't do webinars now, if you are in the business world, or even as a speaker consultant that want to extend your offering or connect to your prospects, it's very good to develop the skills before you do it. Paul is our moderator, we rehearse presentations before we give them. Rob and I had a rehearsal just so everybody gets comfortable with what they are doing. And we have all, at the recommendation of Terry Brock, who I hired to help me master this technology, he said, go out and buy a microphone. So certainly, and he recommended a specific one that we do. So even though we have a microphone in the system, we have an external mic. Terry says that people will forgive if the video isn't perfect. They won't forgive you if the sound isn't perfect. And also, most of my clients, when I have web meetings with them, always comment that I actually look better than they do, and it has nothing to do with actually how we look. It's just the lighting, so you add more lighting. So, Rob, would you like to say something about how do you tell your corporate clients to find the right light? Because I've noticed I always get someone to say, hey, can you look at me? I'm walking to find out the best slots. But it's amazing how many people, it never even occurs to them, where is the best spot on the stage where people can see my face?
You know, that's interesting. Usually at the places where I'm involved in the rehearsal, the technical people will let them know where the light is. I haven't actually encountered that with somebody sort of stumbling into the shadows, but I guess it does become instinctive if you've done it quite a bit. But maybe to somebody who hasn't, it's not second nature.
Now, with your clients, when you find it, do you tape the floor to make sure they remember where it is? Yeah, we'll do that so they don't wander off. I mean, hopefully, yeah, you've got a broad enough area where they feel comfortable walking around and they're not, you know, hemmed into one little spot. Because really, I'd like them to feel as natural as possible and do their thing. All right. Now, you are going for an audition, and how do you look well or look better or get a competitive edge? Because in the business world, you always want to look better than anybody else who might be applying for a job or a promotion. As speakers and consultants, we want to learn to stand out. Do you have any tips that we don't know about?
As far as appearance, because
how are you going to shine over actors who might be equally talented?
I always try a couple things. Personality. I come in the room, a real person, authentic, friendly, so they say, okay, this is a guy who's fun and easy to work with, but not crazy over the top, because you know actors, you're familiar with the show business world. I'm sure you've met many of musicians through your brother. Performers can be a little, you know, crazy.
Yeah.
So I try to strike a balance, professional but enthusiastic. And the second thing is I try to bring something unique, an ad lib, a funny little thing that's not in the script that they may not use, but they say, okay, that's pretty good stuff. We'll hire this guy. And that's how I got the Calipari commercial. They actually used some of the lines that I used in the audition. We put it in the commercial.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And how many other actors were trying to get that role?
Oh, several dozen. So it can be pretty competitive.
One of the blog posts that I had very good feedback on was that was your article that you gave me, was how do you take a good headshot? And of course, speakers and consultants, and even in the corporate world, for example, with Jim, the APA, they have all the headshots of the dozens and dozens and dozens of speakers. How do we get a good headshot? Because yours is superb. I mean, and when you leave us, we'll see your headshot so everyone can see.
I've done so many photo shoots. I've had my picture taken like tens of thousands of times. And when I first started out, I was like, okay, think of something happy. Think of something sad. And now I just sort of do it automatically. So a few things to remember about headshots. Number one, get a recommendation from somebody whose headshot you like for a photographer. Number two, meet the photographer, and if you And you want to have chemistry with that person. If you don't feel a connection with that person, you're probably not going to have a good sitting with them. Number 3, take it seriously. I know a lot of executives, oh, headshots, this is superficial nonsense. No, this is all part of your marketing. Take this as seriously as you would take a P&L sheet. This is how you appear to the world. So take it seriously and smile with your eyes. Somebody asked a casting director once, you have a stack of headshots on your desk, what makes one stand out? And he said, I cover everything but the eyes, and if I still see great expression, that's somebody I'd notice. So when you're smiling, don't just smile with your face, with your mouth, like, you have to smile with your eyes, like this, the whole thing. And suddenly, and you can even get to the point, sometimes they ask me, smile with your eyes, but not with your mouth, and you go, and it's just sort of like a warmth. You're looking through the camera, and you're imagining somebody you love.
Good. Well, and we invite you because we do have to lose Rob in about 7 minutes. That doesn't mean we can't have another meeting with him in various communities and different events. If you have any specific questions, please type them in. Paul, are there any questions now I should be aware of that we haven't answered?
There are 2 questions. One is just something quick that I can answer. They ask what kind of microphone you're using, and that would be the Blue Yeti microphone, and that's the spelling of that is in the chat box. The question for Rob is, what can you do if you have to arrive the day of delivery? Any tips for a shorter type of prep?
Oh boy. Well, if I'm being paid to speak, I go the day before and early on the day before, sometimes 2 days before if it's like summer storm season or winter blizzard season. But if you have no choice and you have to get there the same day, I would find out as much as you can about the room, look at a diagram, see if they have any pictures so you can better visualize it. I would do as much preparation on the plane as you can so you can hit the ground running. And I'd say right before you go on, and for any presentation, relax, take 3 deep breaths, stop looking at your phone, stop thinking about your email inbox, center yourself, think about your first minute of your presentation and what you're going to say and run over that in your mind, and that way you can hit the ground running when you come out. If you open strong, then they're on your side from the start.
And in the Fripp VT leadership course, we have a lot of about how do you prepare and mentally get in the right space. And I recommend, and it says so in that chapter in more detail, don't sit down. Very often our clients say, I saved you a seat at the front table. Well, you can't stand up and be dynamic if you've been sitting down for 90 minutes. And you really need to go to the ladies' room or the gentleman's room so that when you're on stage, your body is not fighting you. All right. Are there any questions? Oh, yes, Lynette. So what is the... Okay, I will let you read that, Paul.
Lynette Charity asks, well, she says she's new to public speaking, and after 35 years as an anesthesiologist, she still has a professional demeanor. She's taken an acting class, but she wants to know what more she can do to loosen up.
To loosen up. Well, I would... One acting class might not be enough. I would say the more experience you get, the looser you'll feel and the better you'll feel in front of crowds. Practice as much as you can. I really think 90% of it is content. If you know your content inside and out, you're a lot less likely to be nervous or uptight on stage. And you know, the acting classes are good. The improv classes really take you to some weird places. I know me, I carry embarrassments with me throughout my life. I'm just now getting over 5th or 6th grade. I'm well over kindergarten stuff I did. But I'll tell you, an acting class or an improv class where you're playing a German cat, a German female cat, coughing up a hairball on stage, that's really going to lower your threshold. You're ready for just about any kind of embarrassment.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is an actress and singer in England, and my brother was talking about a time that she had to act like it was a dog shaking, and the director said, "Oh, that was so good." Well, of course, she's an actor. She rehearsed, but it looked so real. And when you see a speaker do well, it looks natural. When you see an actor, I'm always amazed when people say, "I don't like that person." I say, "You don't know that person. You don't like the characters they portray." Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I am very aware, and so what I would like to, if we can write a poll, Paul, was this information helpful? And with that, while we're setting up the poll, and I'm just going to open a page. Is that right? And you're going to tell me something about what I find.
Okay.
All right. Page 81. This is the top of it's staying on message, which, of course, a lot of our clients, and whether they're speakers or corporate leaders, they have their outline, but they're answering questions, or they go off and they never remember when to come back, or they don't know how to take questions and come back to what is your core message. So you say some people chafe under the message framework. You think it's liberating, and we say, quoting Lou Heckler, that a framework actually frees you, F-R-E-E-S, not freeze with a Z. So tell us about how you get your clients to focus, or what is your secret of your message framework.
It's interesting, when I went from improv to sketch acting, a lot of my improv friends said, "Oh, I don't want to work with a script. It's too much of a straitjacket." And what I learned is exactly what you said. It is freeing. Once you have it down and you can forget it and you just let it flow, it's great. Same thing with a message framework. If you have 4 key points that are concise, compelling, consistent, and you can go back to those, you treat that as your home base. It's always a place to return to. And if the framework has been designed well by somebody who's good at it, it won't feel like a stretch. It'll feel like coming home. Every subject you talk about, suddenly you can find a link back to your core messages.
Well, you will be glad to know, Rob, that 100% of our attendees believe that this information you shared with us was very valuable, very helpful. So on behalf of all the Fripp VT community, whether they were live or whether they will watch later, thank you very much for your contribution. I look forward to our next interview, and with that, we hope you will go off and get the job. What are you auditioning for?
I am playing the role of an anchorman, and I'm supposed to be not very bright, and when the teleprompter goes down, I don't know what to do. So I think they picked the right guy.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, I think that's absolutely perfect. And make sure I know if you get it. So with that, thank you. We'll let you turn off the way we suggested.
All
and
right.
Just for those of you who are watching, there are different ways that you can leave a meeting in the middle of a virtual meeting like this. So certainly Rob could turn off, but what I suggested, he goes to the top of the screen and clicks on turning off the camera, so you see his magnificent headshot as if he's still with us, because he is thinking of the experience while he's going to his audition. So thank you very much, and now we will pick up with what we will now do, Rob, is we'll do a tour around Fripp virtual training to remind everyone of where they can find more about the information you shared with us. So thank you very much. On behalf of everyone, I'm applauding you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, can you see his movie star headshot down at the bottom? And what we are going to do with the magic of technology is pick up. I'm going to turn this to the chat window. So any questions that you have about VT, about what you've heard, about more of our point of view on whatever is most on your mind around presentations, please share us. So now what we're going to do, we're going to share the screen. Okay, so do we, Paul, you're keeping me on track. We now have Fripp virtual training in front of everybody.
Yes.
Perfect. So as you know, just if you are new to Fripp VT, as we showed you last time, when you click the arrow going around the carousel, you get to different areas. Now, we are not going to actually show videos because you can do that on your own. However, what you can do, remember in the file vault, we showed you last time this. Now, sorry, a signal has occurred. All right, so I'm going to go back. So I'm going back to the Hangouts. Hang on, let's go back. Is this with, Paul, are you with me?
I am.
So I am, let me just, hang on, let's just see. So I'm not sure this is, so let me stop sharing. All right, so I'm back. So I have had this up for a long time while we've been in this meeting, so perhaps it clicked off. So what I would like you to do, Paul, is I want you to take over and let's do a poll while I'm getting Fripp VT back up. And the first question is, have you viewed course 5 on storytelling? I'm turning off my camera and I will be back with you, and Paul is going to handle this for us. I should be able to hear you, Paul, if you want to talk. Now this is, let's see, okay, hang on. Can you hear me, Paul? I can
Absolutely,
see you.
and the poll is running.
Okay, good. All right. So let me go to. And if you are, in fact, I'm going to do this now. Hang on. All right. Good. I'm back with you. So one, let's have a look. Have we had a poll? All right, have you viewed course 5 on storytelling, even though you spelt it wrong, Paul? You're spelling the way I do. However, people can understand what you're saying. So we need to know if, as our VT members have already watched the course on storytelling. And what I will, the comment I will make, I was talking to one of my friends this morning at breakfast about doing these virtual meetings for her business, and I've offered to interview her in this format for her community. And I said, you need to have a moderator. And she said, why? I said, because you do, because somebody else worries about something. Well, the good news is 67% of you have not got to one of my personal favorite courses. So let's go in. All right, so now let's see, with the magic of technology, let's just make sure, because you understand sometimes browsers. Now, I didn't click on the share, did I, Paul? So I click on screen share, double click. All right, now, can you now see my screen?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I am going back to the very beginning. So in case you just signed up or you haven't yet, so you sign in here. And I, of course, mine's in there. So I am signing up here. Good. So again, your screen that you see will be in 2 parts. Now, I'm going to show you last time I showed you last time, but this is always important. Go to the small print at the bottom and click on your system requirements so that you can make sure everything is fine. If any of those are yellow, there's a warning that there is something wrong with the computer. Somehow you've got the wrong browser. Because what it might interest you to know is that I always tell VT users, do not use Internet Explorer, because the words I use, which are not technical words, it's not robust enough. However, I am using Internet Explorer because on this system, when we were in rehearsal, which Paul and I were doing several times this week, we couldn't see it. It came out as a black screen because since Google Chrome had their last update, in this system, we can't see it. I can see it when I use it. So it's just one of those crazy glitches. It has nothing to do with anything that we're doing except their latest upgrade, and they'll change it, I'm sure, because there are plenty of complaints. Now, in the file vault, this is where all your handouts are, and what we also add, there are some ebooks. So, for example, here is the Speaker's Edge ebook, and what I was talking about was the Rockstar communicators about communications about how you can the importance of rehearsal, and when I was working with an executive. So that's where that is. So we're going to go back to the training center, which is where you find all your courses. And as you know, in Fripp VT, we have 12 different courses. They all stand alone. However, they all are compatible and all are designed to help you be more powerfully persuasive. So what we're going to recommend you do is, one, Chapter 5 is the importance of a good story. Certainly, Rob was also talking about connecting to the audience, which is Chapter 4. And we did notice, and I know Dave caught it a few times, he used stuff a few times, which is what most normal people do, and we were in conversation rather than focus. Specificity builds credibility. Now, we were talking about the leadership presentations, how to inspire action and commitment, and then, of course, underneath that is how to design or how to deliver a dynamic webinar. So that is where all the courses are built on and are compatible with what we were learning from Rob. Now, you see, I seamlessly went from one screen to the other, didn't I?
Yes.
So I'm back with you, Paul, and everything is as it was before.
Absolutely.
Good. So one, let's go back and see if there are any chat boxes. Gretchen did say, I noticed she hadn't received any of the polls, so Paul, did you handle that? Was it just she didn't know where to look, or she came in too late? As we keep the polls open for 1 minute, if you get in too late, you're going to miss them. But okay, so are there any questions of me at this moment?
It does not appear so.
Okay. Well, good. Well, let's do another poll. One is, would you like to continue Fripp VT user group meetings? And while Paul is setting that up, looking ahead of what's coming, so we do recommend that you take advantage of Fripp Virtual Training. You've invested in it, and this is designed for busy people like you. Learn at your own pace, highly interactive. The biggest issue with all technologies or all programs you invest in is to get started and get going. I would rather you do a little consistently. And remember, as long as you have Flash on your mobile device, you can watch it on your phone or the iPads. Now, some of them, you have to make sure they have Flash. And when in doubt, go to your local store or just Google what program you would use to get Flash on your iPad. So would you like to continue Fripp VT user group meetings? And 69% said yes. I can't believe that 31% said no. Well, the good news is that for those who do want them, we will continue them. And even if you cannot attend, as long as you register, you get the repay link. So we will still invite everybody, and if you don't want to come, you don't have to. I think it's the end of September, I will be delivering an event, and that one will be in GoToMeeting that will invite you to with Tom Drews, who is an expert on delivering webinars, because more and more people like Jim Medlock wants to know how to do it better. And I will say on behalf of Jim Medlock, the APA, who worked with Tom's training, deliver the best of webinars of any client that I personally have sat in on. So with that, we'll open the chat box and see if there are any questions. Rather than look down myself, I will see, Paul, I will let you see if there are any questions from anyone I need to answer.
Yes, Bill Brown asks, what is the certification section all about?
Okay, well, once you have completed a course, you can print out your certificate, which some people might not be interested in. Some people, it would be a matter of pride to download their certificate, of course, appropriate for framing. With the American Payroll Association, if any of their members go through it, then they actually can get RCH credits. And we are working with an upcoming partner in Canada that where they have a system where each course gives credit for taking it. Any other questions, Paul?
Yes, actually. Well, Russell made a statement that the Photon browser for iPad works. Also, I found that the Puffin, P-U-F-F-I-N, free browser works as well. Jim Medlock says that Tom is wonderful. He helped him get started in delivering webinars. And Gary also said that he finds this very helpful, and it serves as new information and a good refresher.
All right. Well, then there is obviously each part of Fripp VT user meetings will be to answer your questions and help you get engaged. So one last polling question before our concluding remarks is, do you enjoy guest presentation experts? So while you set that up, we will I'll make another couple of announcements. I don't want to bombard you with invites to virtual meetings. However, just in case you're interested or want to pass it on, coming up on the, I have to look at I believe it's the 9th of September, I will, in the afternoon, I'll be delivering a virtual event like this on powerful persuasive presentations. This will be to other people who've attended speaking schools and anyone who wants to come up, not necessarily for Fripp VT users, because of course I will introduce the idea to them that perhaps their life and experience and presentations will be better if Fripp VT is a part of their lives. Then if you have any friends in Dublin or in London, I will be speaking in London at the PSA, which is the NSA of England, the Professional Speakers Association, at their convention in October. Then I'm going to Dublin to present an all-day speaking school and also have an open event for Toastmasters and anyone who wants just to have a taste. And we, in fact, are doing virtual meetings Friday to promote London, and it's is it next Monday, Paul, or a week from Monday to promote the one in Ireland? So if you have any friends in England or Ireland, let me know and I will give you the link that you could send to them. In December, Darren LaCroix and I have our coaching camp. And then in February, we have Lady and the Champs. And this will be bigger and better and many exciting aspects that we will soon announce to everyone. So, Paul, let's have a look. Polls, let's see. 100% do enjoy guest presentation experts. Good. As you know, I have plenty of friends and plenty of friends you might not have met. Now, you might say, I've never heard of Rob. Well, I'm not saying they are world-class famous. However, they justify, and I'm sure you'll agree, being my celebrity guest. So we will continue to invite other experts. And with that, remember, I do check your progress. So if there are any last questions, let me know, Paul.
Let's take a look. Yeah. Gary says he finds, oh, that was a weak hair. That Lynette Charity says that she needs this. As she said, she's new to public speaking, and she needs this information. She's now working with Creator and Keynote by next week, and Fripp VT to hopefully write a compelling keynote speech. She says it's time to get paid to speak. Jim Medlock says, thank you very much. Need to leave for the virtual class. And then Bill Brown has a technical issue that I'll cover after the webinar.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that, thank you for your active participation. We are very grateful that you're part of our Fripp VT community. We want you to maximize your investment, and any other suggestions of ways that we can do that, please let us know. So with that, thank you, Paul. Thank you for Rob, who is left, but we will let him know that you found his information very valuable. And with that, as I always like to conclude, please remember what Fripp stands for, especially as it applies to Fripp virtual training. Frequently reinforce ideas that are productive and profitable. I'll be watching your progress. Thank you.